Hey guys, what's up? It's CS back here with another installment, and here are my picks for UFC 158, St-Pierre versus Diaz. Now this card seems like it's been a long time coming because of that main event, which I'm pretty excited for, and I'll get to that real soon, but I just want to brush up on what else is happening on this card. Of course, there's that welterweight tournament also on the main card, and in the preliminary card there's some compelling matchups, like welterweight matchups between Dan Miller and Jordan Mean, and of course Quinn Mulhern and Rick Story. Rick Story on the Facebook portion of this card. Damn. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. But anyway, let's just get to this main card, shall we? Starting off at the top, this matchup, of course, is between George St-Pierre and Nick Diaz for George St-Pierre's welterweight title. Folks, now this is another easy fight for George St-Pierre. Just what does Nick Diaz bring to the table that George St-Pierre will be troubled by? George St-Pierre is going to be able to take Nick Diaz down and just stay in Nick Diaz's guard and not get submitted. And of course, on the feet, he's going to move laterally, rip leg kicks, Superman punches, be able to gauge the distance, and not get caught up in that Diaz brawl. You're not going to see George St-Pierre stay in the pocket with Nick Diaz for more than 10 seconds, so Nick Diaz can have ample time to just rip those punches to your body, to your face, you know, that high volume attacking punching style that Nick Diaz throws. You're not going to see much of it because, again, George St-Pierre is going to be mobile. So watch for George St-Pierre to look like the more dynamic and athletic fighter. He's going to most likely win this via 49-46 unanimous decision at least. I'm calling for 50-44 or 50-45. It's just, there's no reason to why George St-Pierre can't win all rounds against Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz lacks explosiveness, and he lacks the wrestling defense as well. So he's going to be put on his back a lot. He's going to be, you know, dance around a lot as far as jabs and Superman punches is concerned. Shit that's not exactly going to hurt someone like Nick Diaz, but it's going to frustrate Nick Diaz because he's not going to get the offense off that he wants to, and the judges are going to side with George St-Pierre ultimately because he's the one who's attacking, although not attacking a heck of a whole lot like some of you guys would prefer him to. But it is what it is. It's just a bad matchup for Nick Diaz. You know, he has the cardio to make himself survive over the course of 5 rounds, but of course George St-Pierre has the cardio to do that stuff over the course of 5 rounds as well. So look for George St-Pierre to look dominant in this victory against Nick Diaz in La Belle Province. So I'm going to call, again, 50-45, 50-44 unanimous decision for George St-Pierre. As cool as this Diaz finish would be to see, it's just, I think it's unlikely, guys. So it is what it is. Let's move on to that welterweight match between Carlos Condit and Johnny Hendricks. Now, Johnny Hendricks, if he feels like being a mixed martial artist, should win this fight. You know, he has that Division I background, of course, with the wrestling, and Carlos Condit doesn't exactly have the best double leg takedown defense. Johnny Hendricks has a decent double leg, so I think that Johnny Hendricks will be able to take Carlos Condit down and land ground and pound and not get submitted over the course of 3 rounds. Hendricks should win this fight at least 29-28. However, Johnny Hendricks has been trying to knock people out as of late. Of course, he did so against John Fitch and Martin Kampmann. But in between those fights against Josh Koscheck, he got outstruck himself, in my opinion. I personally thought that Koscheck got robbed. Of course, that was a split decision victory for Johnny Hendricks. So, if he's so fixated on trying to knock Carlos Condit out with that haymaker, I think Carlos Condit's going to read that, you know, rudimentary style real fast and just be able to strike and bike en route to a 29-28 split decision or unanimous decision victory. It's going to look close because Johnny Hendricks is going to want to move forward and stuff. I think he's going to be fixated on trying to knock Carlos Condit out. You know, you knocked out 2 legit guys in Martin Kampmann and John Fitch. You're going to think the world of your haymaker. It's just Carlos Condit, you know, is just world's better a kickboxer technically, and I think he's going to read it and be able to win this fight technically, again, via striking like 29-28 unanimous decision. Personally, I actually think that's the likeliest outcome. Now let's move on to another tough welterweight match to call. It's between Jake Ellenberger and Nate Marquardt. Who do you guys give this fight to? Of course, on one side you have Nate Marquardt, former Strikeforce champion. You know, he has pretty good kickboxing as far as his technique is concerned. Didn't have a good game plan against Tarek Safin, so really Jake Ellenberger could go to that leg kick game if he felt like it. But most likely, if it stays standing, Nate Marquardt has the best shot at winning because he's just technically a better kickboxer. He has better combinations than Jake Ellenberger. He has equal power, if you ask me. Nate Marquardt can knock you down. He has good kicks as well if he feels like throwing them. So as far as on the feet, Nate Marquardt should be able to mix it up. Of course, on the ground, if he somehow gets on top of Jake, it's pretty much over if you ask me. Jake Ellenberger, he's a good grappler himself, but Nate Marquardt's just a more seasoned submission grappler. He should be able to just transition to back mount or something like that, win via ground and pound, if not a rear naked choke. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that, maybe a guillotine from Nate Marquardt if he hits the ground. But Jake Ellenberger, if he feels like being a mixed martial artist in this fight, he should win. He should land leg kicks at will, kind of like Tarek Safin, and be able to take down Nate Marquardt at the end of rounds. You know, I think that would be a logical game plan against Nate Marquardt, and, you know, I just don't think Nate Marquardt has the best game planning, so I think Jake Ellenberger can definitely do that. However, I just don't think his stand-up's going to be that sharp come this fight against Marquardt. Therefore, I think his takedowns are going to look lackluster. I think Jake Ellenberger does need to set up his takedowns a little bit. Jake Ellenberger just kind of shoots in for a double leg sometimes, and I think that Marquardt's going to be able to just pivot, if not just sprawl. So look for Ellenberger to have not the greatest game planning. He's going to go in there, try to be aggressive as far as moving forward with those power punches, and maybe try to take Marquardt down, but I think he's going to gas doing so as well. So I think Ellenberger should stick to a low gas kind of game plan as far as ripping leg kicks and then taking down Nate Marquardt, because I don't think he can keep up a wrestling pace over the course of 3 rounds. So I'm going to more so lean towards Nate Marquardt via sprawl and brawl and just being able to out-technique Jake Ellenberger on feet. I think it's going to be a tough fight. I think it's a pick-em fight, but I'm leaning towards Marquardt in this one, 29-28. Now let's move on to this middleweight bout between Chris Camozzi and Nick Ring. Easy fight to call if you ask me. Nick Ring, better at everything compared to Chris Camozzi. Chris Camozzi is decent at a lot of stuff. His jiu-jitsu's all right. His top game's okay. His takedowns are all right. His sprawling is all right. His striking isn't great, but he moves forward and he's able to pile up some offense against you. But I think that Nick Ring is just technically better everywhere and will be a little bit more aggressive in this fight. I don't think he's going to have a slow start. I think he's going to be able to move forward and land combinations on Chris Camozzi en route to taking him down eventually, if not cage and clinching with him and then taking him down. And I think he'll be able to submit Chris Camozzi when it gets there. So I'm going to call for maybe a second round submission. I'm going to say rear naked choke for Nick Ring. I just think it's highly unlikely that he loses this fight in Canada. I think he's not going to have a slow start. I think he's going to look fairly aggressive. He should win at least a unanimous decision, but again, I'm calling for that submission in the second round for Nick Ring. And now the fight we're going to look at last, it's between Colin Fletcher and Mike Ricci in lightweight, kicking us off on the main card. Of course, both these guys are tough runner-ups. Mike Ricci on one side, better striker, a little bit more athletic. If you ask me, his jiu-jitsu is okay. His wrestling's kind of deficient, but it's not like Colin Fletcher has D1 wrestling or anything. He should be able to beat Colin Fletcher rather easily, if you ask me. I think on the feet, he's definitely the better striker technically. I think he's going to be able to rip leg kicks and combinations, and Fletcher is going to be kind of chasing after him at times, if not just looking stationary. Fletcher is the freak show. He's psycho-aggressive and stuff, but I think that if Mike Ricci is able to shake off a few clinch or takedown attempts, he's going to be able to outstrike him easily for the rest of the fight. I think that Fletcher is going to look mad aggressive early, but, Ricci's going to be able to set the precedent of the fight on the feet. He's going to make it look consistent and win via 30-27 decision. So that's my pick, Mike Ricci, again, via UD. And there it is, guys. I think that about does it for my picks for UFC 158. Stay tuned for a review for this card. Hopefully I get one out to you guys. And definitely take a look at my preliminary card picks in the description below. So yeah, I think that about does it for me, guys. Thank you for all the support once again. Deuces for all my supporters, boosts for all my haters, and take care.